welcome to this class. I'm going to give you a little forewarning and apology in advance. I'm going to talk about my strong opinions about education. They don't need to be your opinions. You don't need, I don't want to offend anybody. I'm not trying to shame anybody. I have strong opinions about education, and I don't want anybody to leave feeling like now I have to homeschool her. You know, I just want you to filter the information through that lens. I'm not trying to be offensive. I don't want you to leave feeling like, well, if I don't homeschool, then I'm not a good parent. That's not how I perceive it. I've just been in the school system. I taught every grade, and I homeschooled because as good of a teacher as I tried to be, as much time as I put into it, as much preparation, everything, I felt like I was failing my students, and I couldn't have tried harder. I couldn't have worked. I didn't have kids at the time, you know, and so I was just very honest with myself leaving my profession. It's like, there's no possible way to give children the education that I feel a child deserves in the school system. So this is my perspective, having taught school, but it doesn't need to be your perspective. I absolutely love kids, and my driving motive for doing this is for my love for children. That's the root of this, particularly 5-year-olds, and that's who we're talking about today. But every parent that I see, that I work with, that messages me, who follows us on Facebook, I know, like, in my mind, I'm like, that's potentially 3 to 5 kids whose lives are being blessed. And so that's my purpose. That's my mission, is to bless the children of the next generation. And if you see where the generations are going, you can see already in our society the chaos, the lack of self-esteem, the traumas, the fears that come from going to school, the bullying, all of those things are affecting our society now. And I don't perceive and foresee that it's going to get better unless we make a U-turn and return to the original ways that families were meant to live together, learn together, develop together. I don't see our society improving. And I really believe that homeschooling is the key to this, whether it's partial homeschooling, partial school, co-ops, micro schools, you know, there's a variety of ways to do that. But the fact that we are putting our kids in an artificial environment where they're not meant, if they were meant to be with kids their same age, then they would be born in that environment. They were born with a variety of ages, a wide spectrum of experiences for them to have from all different age groups. And I just don't feel that our school system is cutting it. It's been over 100 years since we created the school system, and it's still a mess, right? And there's still major problems. And we haven't worked out so many kinks with all the knowledge, all the education, all the information that we have. It's just hasn't improved, to be honest. It's gotten worse, in my opinion. So this is my opinion that I am owning, but I don't want to shame anybody or make anyone feel bad about it. Kids are not a one-size-fits-all circumstance. It's not, we're not supposed to only categorize kids as, okay, you're behind, let's rush, right? That's personally, like, I was very delayed. I had dyslexia, and personally, like, if my parents had handled it that way, which they didn't, they kind of let me evolve. That my parents really were my saving grace, in that they weren't pressuring me, stressing me out, because in school all day long was push, stress. And that was back in the day before Common Core, before No Child Left Behind. And I still couldn't keep up with all the balls coming at me. Can you imagine being a child with learning disabilities or learning differences, either advanced or in this day and age, where it's like Common Core, everybody has to learn the exact same way, and we overcomplicate the concepts. And then No Child Left Behind, we have to teach to a test. It's no longer about like creativity and using all sides of your brain and using your whole body to learn and develop things that are developmentally appropriate. We are giving 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds multiple choice tests. Like, what are we thinking, and why are we so developmentally inappropriate for children? Like, why don't we work with a child's brain and where the child's at? We're asking children to enter into an adult world and adapt to what adults want from them, instead of saying, let's take childhood, let's sculpt it, let's shape it, let's nurture it and embrace it for what it is. That's a beautiful season. Your children will never get another childhood. And my heart hurts at how we're like push, 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 stress, 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 busy, busy, busy. And then we're going to look back on our kids' childhood and be like, wait, they weren't allowed to be kids. And I think that there is a absolutely critical piece to this. And let me explain why I feel this way. About 15 years ago, I attended a set of courses about the development of the brain. And the whole development of the brain starts with crawling. And if the child does not crawl long enough, sufficient enough amount of time, the brain development is cut short. And then if they are pushed to go on to walking, and they don't finish that whole entire process of crawling for the amount of time that they need to, then the brain grows up with handicaps, with like little gaps in the brain, because they didn't finish that developmental phase. And that's how I see what we're doing now in childhood is we're like, okay, colors, okay, numbers, okay, letters, okay, let's just throw all this at them because we have to keep up, because we have to live up to the pressure. And I just feel like, slow down. That's not how it works. Like, if your child crawled at 9 months, and then were you worried that they wouldn't crawl? And then if they started walking at 14 months, you knew that they were going to walk, even though all the other 14-month-old kids were already walking. You're like, okay, they're going to get it. That's the mentality of an intuitive mother. But when we send our kids to school, we throw away our intuition and we listen to the teachers in the school and Common Core and teaching to a test. We throw away our intuition and we're like, okay, well, your teacher said this, so we got to do it. And I saw it over and over as I was teaching school. I saw parents being a slave to me. And I'm like, this is my first year teaching second grade, like, you don't need to, I want to know what you want for your child. You don't need to be my slave, And that was what I just ran into one of my previous parents, because that was one of my things, was like, okay, tell me about your child. Tell me like what you want for your child. And that's how I approached teaching my kids, because I thought it was wrong that they were like trying to follow my demands. And I just ran into one of the parents and she's like, I've never had a teacher experience like that. And I'm like, that's what the parent experience should be, is where is your child at? Tell me their story and let's hold hands together and walk them through this. One of my students was in all these activities after school and she was stressed to the max. So I met with her parents and I said, we both kind of came to the conclusion that she shouldn't be in school. If she's going to be in activities all afternoon, then she needs to leave school a little bit early to have a breather. So she left school at lunchtime or right after lunchtime every day, because that's what was right for that child. And then she started to be able to breathe a little and not be so stressed out. And the parents were like, oh, like, thank you for letting her do this. And I'm not trying to brag about myself as a parent. I'm saying the system and like teaching within this broken system and not listening to the child's needs, not listening to how like the child is being rushed and stressed and so forth. It should change. It should change quickly. But when you have 30 kids, it's really hard to adapt on that level. So what I want to tell you right now is, if I could wish anything for you, is that you came here for a kindergarten class, but I want the word grade level to be erased from your mind. Just take it out of your mind. There is no such thing as grade levels. Because when your child was born, were you like, okay, he's at such and such grade? That's not how we were created. We weren't created to be categorized into grade levels. Okay, take the mentality of there's a grade level, right? And I want you to embrace your mother's intuition, embrace your child where your child is at developmentally. whether they're speaking well, whether they're not speaking well, whether they know how to read or they don't even know letter sounds. Take it all away and just like take all the pressure. Okay. There is no pressure because there's no grade level. There is no grade level. It's a made up fictional thing. Okay. So I advertise it as, okay, come and let's talk about grade levels. But I want to tell you how much stress falls off your shoulders when you think about your child learning to crawl and then learning to walk. How much stress falls off your shoulders if you were to approach education that way? If you were to be like, okay, I know where they're going. I know how to facilitate it. I know the next step that they need to take, but it's not 20 things that they need to learn, and they don't need to learn it right now. They're going to naturally climb up the staircase of learning. So that's why I drew this lovely staircase for you. I was going to write words and do other things, but I ran out of time as usual. And so I want you to just like take it as skill development up a staircase. They're at this skill right now, and then they're going to go to the next skill. And then we might visit the previous skill to like review a little bit, but we're going to go to the next skill after they really get this skill down. Does it have to be mastered perfectly before we climb the next step? No, because you can always go down and visit the stair before. And then you go to the next stair and you're on this stair, but guess what? At any point in time, you can go back 5 stairs. So there's no pressure. Okay. We have this whole thing with moving into grades, and we're like, okay, they're in kindergarten and then they're going to go to first grade, and heaven forbid we go back and visit something in kindergarten, you know, like or we hold them back because they're not ready to keep going. And so take that mentality away, let it fall off your shoulders. I'm going to walk you through the typical skills of a 5 and 6 year old. Okay, these are skills that the state requires. And let me tell you, this is just the language arts standards for kindergarten, not even math included right here. Okay, how much are we complicating 5-year-olds? Okay, what if we did this for newborns and 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds? If we wrote standards like this, just in one category, what if we did that? How stressed would we be with our babies? We wouldn't even enjoy our babies. We would be like, okay, am I on track with all they need to be doing right now as a 0? Like, he's not even 1 year old. Would we sit and hug and snuggle and nurse and feed and cuddle and laugh with that baby if that's what the baby had? Is this list of checklists? He would be dumbed down to, lowered down to, dehumanized into a checklist. And that's not the human experience. And so, I mean, I could talk for hours. You can hear my passion for this, but it's killing our kids. It is. It's taking away their joy, their passion. And this is the time to feel joy and passion, is in childhood. If it's not in any other time in life, why not in childhood, right? And if they don't develop joy and passion in childhood, are they ever going to find it? If we take it away at the age of 4 and 5 and 6, and we take it away, even if the teacher has tons of fun, beautiful, laminated, colorful, cut out manipulatives and crafts, it's like, well, go look at a beautiful classroom with all these intimidating activities that your kid could care less about. Okay. And so, yeah, like I spent hours working on those types of things as a teacher. It was still forced upon them. It was still something that was like shoved down their throat. Okay, look at my beautiful laminated board that you're going to sit and stare at. You know, it was still something that they didn't have a choice whether they wanted to or not. And that's not how it's going to work at home. That's not how it should be. That's not how an education should be. And so we're taking away their ownership from the very start. We're taking away their freedom. We're taking away their agency of, hey, this is a passion of mine. This is an interest. And so what I want to offer to you is, when I share these skills over this period of courses, is the skill doesn't need to be practiced Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If they have a passion for ladybugs one day, then you say, okay, we can integrate ladybugs into this skill, or we can drop practicing this skill, and we can do it the other 3 days of the week. And we could even do it on Sunday morning or Saturday night, because it's the one skill that they're working on. So I'm going to offer you two skills that they'll be working on at a time. English language skill. And let me just tell you what English and language arts are. They're reading, writing, speaking, and listening. That's all it is. Okay. If your child is having some exposure to reading, some exposure to writing, whether it's watching you write, some exposure to speaking, and some exposure to listening, you're homeschooling already. Okay. That is, and they will naturally, in their own due time, learn these 4 skills because they're in an environment, just like they're in an environment where people walk. They naturally, intuitively became crawlers to walkers. And that's what your child will do. But that's not the day and age. I understand that's not the reality of what we live in. If you have an 8-year-old who can't read, you know, and you're homeschooling, people might start questioning you. So I'm going to give you those skills, but I just want like all the pressure to fall off of your backs. And let me tell you, not having your kid in this box, you're already giving them a head start. Whether you do nothing at all and you let them follow their interests and their passions, or you do some sort of skill development, they are going to be light years ahead because guess what? They got to own their own life. Their life ownership, the ownership of their life wasn't taken away from them when they were 5 years old. And so they have this beautiful creation that they're creating of who they are, who their spirits are, who their soul is, what their time looks like, what their childhood looks like from the very start. And so if they're going to create this beautiful soul and this beautiful life for themselves from the start, are they ever going to stop? No, they aren't. We cut it off and we're like, this is how you must live. This is what life looks like. And that's what they submit to the rest of their lives. And they live a life that is like everybody else's. You know, I wake up, I'm in the rat race, and we start them in the rat race at a young age. Okay, so